And we did talk about residuary heirs a few times before, and we said that sometimes they translate this as universal heirs. And the reason why I chose that particular translation, residuary heirs, is that it is more descriptive of the way they inherit, or through which they inherit. They only inherit the residue, the remaining part of the inheritance, because the Prophet ﷺ, in the hadith that was reported by Bukhari and Muslim from Abdullah ibn Abbas, said what? ألحق الفرائض بأهلها فما بقي فلأولى رجل ذكر. Give the designated shares to the deserving heirs, and and the remainder goes to the most deserving male relative. So ألحق الفرائض بأهلها فما بقي فلأولى رجل ذكر. Give the designated shares to those who are more deserving. And if you remember last time, we said that the first thing that we will start with is ashab al-furud, or people with designated shares. And the second will be what? Al-asabat, residuary heirs. And the third will be what? Rad, which is redistribution. Rad. Rad means what? That if you have extra, you can never have rad if you have residuary heirs. You can never have rad if you have residuary heirs. Why? Because the residuary heirs take the rest. So the concept of rad and residuary heirs this concept is mutually exclusive. They're mutually exclusive concepts. They don't, coexist. So, okay. And then what else? What's number 4? Other kin. Ulul arham. And what's number 5? The rest of the Muslims, which would be the treasury, Baytul Mal. So the Ummah will inherit the person. So designated shares, residuary heirs, redistribution, other kin, treasury. Ashab al-Furud, al-Asabat, al-Rad, Ulul Arham, Baytul Mal. Okay. Now, so this is where they belong. They only take the residue. So you may, like I said, so those are stronger or those? Huh? Designated shares are stronger. But, the son is here, does not have a designated share. But like I said, he will always have the power to partially block, Hajj, partially block, or fully block, completely block others. So there will, the designated shares in the presence of the son will never be more than what? 7 out of 12. Shares will go to designated shares, but there will be always at least 5 out of 12 or 5/12 that will go to the son, and if he has sisters and so on, it will go to them. Why is that? Because as we said, if you have a son, this is the deceased. If you have a son, let's say the deceased also had not a wife, but let's say the deceased had a husband. Okay, and if you have a son, and you have everybody else around the deceased, everybody survived, everybody is good, who will inherit, the father will be limited to what? 1/6. The mother will be limited to what? 1/6. The husband will be limited to what? From 1/2 to 1/4, right? Okay, so now what does the brother get? Nothing, completely blocked. Partially blocked, partially blocked, partially blocked, completely blocked. So 1/6 and 1/6 is 1/3. Or you could say, if you make it out of 12, because you have 4 here, if you make it out of 12, that's 2 out of 12. 2 out of 12. What is this? 3 out of 12, right? So 2 plus 2 is 4, and 3 is 7. There will always be 5 out of 12 left if there is a son. There will always be 5 out of 12 left if there is a son. Can you imagine people with designated shares taking more in the presence of the son, taking more than 7 out of 12? Never. Because like if everybody, if he was survived by everybody, the whole clan, well, you know that the father blocks the grandfathers. You know that the mother blocks the grandmothers. You know that the son will block all the hawashi, you know, brothers and uncles and cousins and all of that. You know that the son will partially block the father, the mother, and the husband. Who are the 6 people that will always inherit? Always inherit? Mother, father, husband, wife, son, daughter. 6 people. They will never not inherit. Those are the only people that will never not inherit. Okay. So the Sheikh said, Bab al-Asabat, chapter on residuary heirs. وهم كل ذكر يدلي بنفسه أو بذكر آخر إلا الزوجة والمعتقة وعصباتها. They are every male relative who is connected to the deceased directly or through another male relative, except the husband, the female emancipator, and her residuary heirs. Except the husband, the female emancipator, and her residuary heirs. You could add to this what? One thing that can be asaba, but it is not a male relative directly connected to the deceased. The mother, after public imprecation, li'an, she will be asaba, or her asabat will be asaba. 2 positions in the madhab. So she either will be the asaba or her asabat will be the asaba. And that description of a male relative directly connected to the deceased, meaning through male relatives. So it is male relative that is connected to the deceased through male relatives. The closest will be the one to get the inheritance out of them. But out of that description, male relative direct connected to the deceased through male relatives, he made 2 exceptions. He said the husband and the female emancipator and her residuary heirs. Why did he say the husband? Because the husband is a male relative directly connected to the deceased, but he will not be asaba. He will have a designated share and he will never be asaba. He will never inherit the rest. So that definition of a male relative directly connected to the deceased, you will have to make an exception from that definition. The husband is a male relative directly connected to the deceased, but will never be asaba. The other exception, the other exception would be on the opposite side. Now, a non-male relative that will be asaba. Here we have the example of a male relative that will not be asaba. What is the example of a non-male or a female relative that will be asaba? The Sheikh mentioned the emancipator, the female emancipator. If she emancipated the person and then the person did not have his own asabat, she will be his asaba. She will be the residuary heir of that emancipated slave that she emancipated. So, but you could add to this who? The mother, as we said, after public imprecation or li'an, mutual invocation of curses. So if the father, the mother of the child who was denied paternity by the father, or the mother of the child who is fatherless, she will inherit him as a residuary heir, or her residuary heirs will inherit him as a residuary heir, as residuary heirs. Okay, so I want you just to remember the definition. We know the exceptions. There are two exceptions. Some females that will be asabat and some males that will not be asabat. The male that will not be asaba, but he's directly connected to the deceased, is the husband, and the female that will be asaba, even though she is a female and not a male, is the emancipator, a female emancipator, and the mother of the child who was denied paternity or who is fatherless. Okay. Now, going back to the definition itself, after we have, known the exceptions, the definition itself is that the asaba will be a male relative connected to the deceased through male relatives. So, is the brother male relative connected to the deceased through male relative? Yes, he is the son of his father. Is the grandfather a male relative connected to the deceased through male relative? Yes. Is the grandson a male relative connected to the deceased through male relative? Yes. Great-grandson, great-grandfather. Is the uncle connected to the deceased through male relatives? Yes. Look at this. This is the uncle here. This is the grandfather, father, deceased. So, is the remote, this guy here, who is this? You can't even have a name for this. But it's, let's say, a remote cousin. So, but he may not be a cousin because he may be here, for instance. He may be this one. Yeah, or he may be like somewhere. So anyway, so he will be somewhere like a remote uncle, type of uncle, or great uncle or something, remote nephew or great nephew, remote cousin. There's no great cousin, right? So yeah, but so he will be somewhere out there. But still, if we can get him connected to the deceased through male relatives, if this one here, if all of these are not present, and this one is present, connected. So he will inherit the rest, the remainder, the residue. He will be a residuary heir. Okay, then the Sheikh said, وَأَحَقُّهُمْ بِالْمِيرَاثِ أَقْرَبُهُم وَأَقْرَبُهُم الْإِبْنُ ثُمَّ ابْنُهُ وَإِنْ نَزَلَ ثُمَّ الْأَبُ ثُمَّ أَبُوهُ وَإِنْ عَلَى مَا لَمْ يَكُنْ إِخْوَةً ثم بنو الأب ثم بنوهم وإن نزلوا ثم بنو الجد ثم بنوهم وعلى هذا لا يرث بنو أب أعلى مع بني أب أدنى منه وإن نزلوا وأولى كل بني أب أقربهم إليه فإن استوت درجاتهم فأولاهم من كان لأبوين. The one who most deserves the inheritance is the closest, and the closest is the son. Then his son, however far down in generations, and then the father. Then his father, however far upward in generations. Given there are no siblings, then the father's children and their children, however far down in generations. Then the children of the paternal grandfather, then their children, however far down. This means the children of a more distant male ancestor will not inherit in the presence of the children of a closer male ancestor, and the most deserving of the children of one male ancestor are those closest to that male ancestor. And if they are at the same distance, then precedence will be given to the one connected through both of his parents. Explanation. Okay. So as we said last time, repetition is always helpful because these things tend to get forgotten. As we said last time, we have three variables to consider. What is the strongest variable? Direction, al-jiha. Direction. Second, the most important variable, al-qurb, proximity. Third, the most important variable, or not most important, the last variable, al-quwwa, strength. How do we interpret this? Okay, that is what he's saying. He's saying that when it comes to jiha, filiality takes a precedence all the time. Bunuwa, filiality, takes a precedence all the time. Descendants take precedence before ancestors and before hawashi. Whatever you translate hawashi into. Sides or sort of like, whatever. So you're going down all the way before you think of going up. Will the father always inherit? Yes, we always said the father will always inherit. But how is he going to inherit? Not as a asaba, not as a residuary heir. In the presence of sons or sons' sons, the father, even in the presence of a great-great-great-grandson. See how far that is? You know, the father will still be blocked by the great-great-great-great-grandson. He will block the father from being a residuary heir, or, you know, in the case of daughters, the daughters block the father from being just a residuary heir into 1/6 plus residuary. But that's a different story. But in the presence of the son, he will change the status of the father from being a residuary heir who gets the remainder into being a sahib fard, designated share heir, who gets only 1/6. And everything else will go to this person here. So the jiha, that is the first jiha, descendants. The second jiha is ancestors. But because of the disagreement that we have gone over before about the jad, we divide the ancestors into two categories, two subcategories. Al-ubuwa wal-jududa. Ubuwa is parenthood. Jududa is what? Great parenthood. So ubuwa has different rules, because in the presence of al-ab, you know, and the absence of the ibn, the son, the sons or sons' sons, in the presence of the ab, no one else is inheriting. He's blocking everyone. He's taking all the remainder. Alone. In the presence of a jad or a great-grandfather, a grandfather or a great-grandfather, what is happening? We're getting into this complex situation where he will have precedence, he will have priority, he will be stronger than the siblings, but he will not completely block the siblings. Which siblings are we talking about? Full and paternal half, not maternal half. Maternal half will always be blocked by the grandfather. Full and paternal half. The grandfather does not have the strength of the father to completely block them. But is he stronger than them? Yes, he is stronger than them. That is why we said before that we will give him the greater of this or this or that, 1/6 of the whole thing, 1/3 of the remainder, or being like a partner with them. So 1/6 of the whole estate, 1/3 of the remainder after Ashab al-Furud, the designated shares, take their shares, or you know, being like one of the siblings, whichever is better for him. That means he's stronger. Okay. So that is the grandfather with the siblings. Now, we don't have this direction. We don't have bunuwa. We don't have ubuwa. We don't have jududa. What are we doing now? We will look for al-hawashi. We'll look for a hawashi. Hashiya means what? In books, when we write a book, hashiya means side notes and footnotes. So those are your footnotes and side notes. You know, it does not belittle the, but anyway, your siblings, your uncles, your cousins, your nephews, They are the sides. They are not amud al-nasab. That is the point. They are not the pillars of your lineage. You know, can you imagine their absence? Yes. Can you imagine? Yeah. Can you imagine the absence of your grandfather? You will not exist. You know, the amud al-nasab is the pillar of your lineage. And the same applies to the people who, they say that your children are your sort of immortality. Well, anyway, but it's not. But anyway, the idea here is that your children are part of this amud, part of this pillar, you know, up and down. Going to the sides, you're called hawashi, side notes. So here we have, so we don't have bunuwa, we don't have ubuwa, parenthood, we don't have great parenthood. What we will do is we will go to the hawashi that are connected to you through whom? Your father first. Your father first. Okay, and then because the jiha, because the you know, look at this. So this is your sibling, right? This is your nephew, right? This is your father. This is the deceased. This is the father of the deceased. This is the full sibling of the deceased. He comes from the same father and mother. This one is the paternal. This is full, and this is paternal. Here, this is full, and this is only paternal. So this sibling, this is your brother. This is your full brother, son of your father and the mother. This is your brother. So forget about full or parental here, but I have this brother has, you know, this son here, and this brother died, and this son died, so your great nephew is alive. This fellow here is alive. At the same time, who's this? This is your grandfather, right? And who is this? This is your paternal uncle. This is your immediate paternal uncle. This is your immediate paternal uncle. This is your brother's brother. Huh? Your father's brother. This is your father's brother. This is your immediate. In the presence of your great nephew and your immediate uncle, who will be the residuary heir? Your great nephew. Is he closer to you, or who's closer to you? The uncle or the great nephew? The uncle is closer. Why are we given the great nephew if the uncle is closer? Because proximity is not the most important variable. Because we will have to look at the jiha first. And this is connected to you through your father, not your grandfather. So you will go down the lineage from the siblings before you think of anyone. You know, if you look at proximity, you know, and there may be some difference in terminology here, like which one is closer to you. But if you look at the number of connections, that is not what you're looking at now. You're looking at how they are connected to you before you are looking at the number of connections. In a second consideration, you will look at the number of connections. How is it that you look at the number of connections? Easy. So now let us say, here, this is a paternal uncle. This is a paternal uncle. This is the paternal half brother of your father. This is his child. This is another child. This is another child. This paternal uncle died, but this child of his is alive. And this child of his is alive. Who inherits? This one or this one? The one on the top or the one on the bottom? The one on the top. Why? proximity. He's closer to you in terms of connections. Count the number of connections. He's closer to the deceased. Okay. Then finally, the last thing that we will consider now is what? Strength. So you have, okay, so this is your full sibling, son of your father and mother. This is your paternal sibling, son of your father with another woman here. Or here, this is your uncle, the full uncle, who is the full sibling of your father, and this is the paternal uncle. F or P or both. Is it full or paternal or both? Full only. The full only, and will exclude the paternal because he has more strength. If they are equal here in terms of the direction, and if they are equal here in terms of their proximity, then we will give the full. Let us say that I have this. Okay, so let us say I have this. Who's this now? This is your full uncle. Full uncle. Who's this? This is his son. Son. Who's this? This is your paternal uncle. Let us say your full uncle died, and you were survived by your paternal uncle and the son of your full uncle. Who will inherit? Son of the full uncle? Wrong. Guys, strength comes after proximity. Is your paternal uncle closer to you or the son of your full uncle? Your paternal uncle is closer to you than the son of your full uncle.
So the rules about the younger does not apply when it comes to Hajj.
No, it applies, but no, it
doesn't.
No,
but they're saying the great grandson will always inherit before anybody else. So if the son's uncle is the son.
Yes, the great grandson will always inherit because of jiha. The direction is more important than the proximity. But I am saying here that the proximity is more important than the strength. You have a paternal uncle and a full uncle. Who is stronger? The full uncle. So if you have a paternal uncle and a full uncle, who inherits? The full uncle. Because قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم أن أبناء الأعيان يرثون قبل أبناء العلات. The Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم said, decreed that the full siblings will inherit, before will be given a precedence in inheritance, or inherit without, or rule out or exclude the paternal half siblings. So I have the full and the paternal. Are they the same jiha? Yes. Are they the same proximity, distance, or number of connections? Yes. Are they the same quwwah? No. Who is aqwa? Who is stronger? The full. I will give him the rest. But here I am telling you, I have the son of the full uncle and the paternal uncle himself, not his son. The paternal uncle himself. Follow this order. In terms of direction, are they from the same direction? Yes, they are from the same direction. What is the second variable here? Is it strength or proximity? Proximity. So who has less connections? Lesser number of connections? The paternal uncle. Not the son of the full uncle. The son of the full uncle has a larger number of connections between him and the deceased. So he will not inherit in the presence of the paternal uncle. The paternal uncle will get everything. That's clear, isn't it? Okay, yes?
Do you mind putting for F equals full and P equals paternal, just for picture purposes?
Okay.
Confuse it as full and partial or something.
Full. Well, yeah. So is that clear? That should be clear. Next, he said, وأربعة منهم يعصبون أخواتهم ويقتسمون ما ورثوا للذكر مثل حظ الأنثيين وهم الابن وابنه والأخ من الأبوين أو من الأب. There are 4 who will make their sisters co-residuary heirs, so they will have all their inheritance divided between them. For the male, twice as much as for the female. They are the son, the son's son, the full brother, and the paternal half-brother. Okay, here. One thing I wanted to mention before we move on to the next one, which is the idea of co-residuary heirs. عصبة بالغير. Co-residuary heirs. عصبة بالغير. So one thing that I wanted to mention, we say that the residuary heir will inherit everything. Can there be more than one residuary heir? Yes. Oh, good. Alhamdulillah. When can there be more than one residuary heir? There can be more than one residuary heir if they are equal. You have, 200 grandsons at the same level. They will all be residuary heirs if they are the same generation. 200 grandsons of the same generation. Yeah, some people do, don't think that, yeah, without mentioning names. But, so 200 grandsons of the same generation. They will be residuary heirs, all of them at the same time. Now, the idea of co-residuary heir, like a male relative making his sister a residuary heir with him. When does that idea apply? In 4 scenarios only. 4 only. This son will make his sister co-residuary heir with him. This with this. This with this. This is 2 scenarios because this and this we just call them ibn al-ibn wa al-nazal. The son of the son, no matter how many generations down. So the al-ibn and ibn al-ibn, no matter how many generations down. The son and the son's sons, no matter how many generations down. What do they do to their sisters? They make them residuary heirs with them, and it will be 2 shares for the male, 1 share for the female. So 1 and 2, the son and the son's son. Who else makes his sisters co-residuary heirs? The sibling, whether it is full or paternal. The full or paternal siblings will make their sisters co-residuary heirs. Okay? Will make their sisters co-residuary heirs. The full and the paternal. So that is 3 and 4. Full sibling will make his sisters co-residuary heirs. It's 2 and 1. يستفتونك قل الله يفتيكم في الكلالة امرؤ هلك ليس له ولد وله أخت فلها نصف ما ترك وهو يرثها إن لم يكن له ولد فإن كانت 2 فلهما الثلثان مما ترك وإن كانوا إخوة رجالا ونساء فللذكر مثل حظ الأنثيين يبين الله لكم أن تضلوا والله بكل شيء عليم. The last verse in Surah An-Nisa is about this issue. The last verse of Surah An-Nisa is about this issue. And if one is survived by his sister, she will have half. If he survived her, he will have all. If it is more than 1 sisters, they will 2 sisters or more, where they will take 2/3. And if it is siblings that are males and females, the male will get twice the female in that arrangement. So here, full and paternal. Okay, now let us go a little bit farther away from here. So let us go to the full uncle. The full uncle has a sister, your aunt, your paternal aunt. You were survived by your full paternal uncle and your full paternal aunt. Will the full uncle make her a co-residuary heir? No, he will not. Will will his son, your cousin, make his sister co-residuary heir? No. Will your nephew, your nephew make your niece co-residuary heir? No. Only 4 cases. الابن وابنه والأخ لأبوين والأخ لأب. The son, the son's son, the full paternal, the full sibling, the full brother, and the paternal half brother. Only those 4 will make their sisters co-residuary heirs. And remember when we said before that, ibn that it belongs to a lower generation can make, his aunt a co-residuary heir if she needed him. Remember that story, bint al-ibn, but anyway. So, but then these are the 4 cases. Then the Sheikh said, وَمَنْ عَدَاهُمْ يَنْفَرِدُ الذُّكُورُ بِالْمِيرَاثِ كَبَنِي الْإِخْوَةِ وَالْأَعْمَامِ وَبَنِيهِمْ. Any other males will take the remainder, such as the brothers' sons, the paternal uncles, and the sons of the paternal uncles. Aside from those 4 scenarios, it will all go to the closest male relative. Because al-Fiqh الفرائض بأهلها فما بقي فلأولى رجل ذكر. So give the designated shares to the deserving inheritors, and the remainder will go to the closest male relative. Why is it that in these 4 cases were given to the male and his sisters? Because that was spelled out in the revelation. Okay. وإذا انفرد العصبة ورث المال كله وإن كان معه ذو فرض بدأ به وكان الباقي للعصبة لقول رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم الحق الفرائض بأهلها فما بقي فلأولى رجل ذكر. When the residuary heir is alone, he or she, when can a woman be a residuary heir? Female emancipator and the mother of a fatherless child who's denied paternity in li'an, public imprecation or mutual invocation of curses. Okay, so he says when the residuary heir is alone, he or she inherits but that mother, in public, the authorized view in the madhab is that her residuary heirs will be the residuary heir. It is the variant view within the madhab that she will be the residuary heir, not her residuary heirs. But anyways, so when the residuary heir is alone, he or she inherits the entire estate. If there is an heir with a designated share along with the residuary heir, that designated share will be given to him or her first, with the remainder for the residuary heir. This is because the Messenger of Allah ﷺ said, give the designated shares to those who are entitled to them, and what remains goes to the nearest male heir. That's clear. Then he says, فَإِنْ اسْتَغْرَقَتْ الْفُرُوض الْمَالِ If the designated shares exhaust the entire estate, سَقَطَ الْعَصَبَ Then the residuary heir is precluded. The residuary heir does not get anything, because sometimes you will have. So we said what? We said that rad and inheritance by asabat will never coexist. Redistribution and inherit and will never coexist with residuary heirs. There is another concept that will never coexist with residuary heirs. Which one? Awl. Proportionate reduction of shares. We will come to the chapter of Awl later, inshallah. Proportionate reduction of shares. When does that happen? If you have people with designated shares that not only are entitled to the whole estate, their shares are even more than the estate. So they are entitled, like if the estate if we're dividing this estate to, let us say, 6, as we will come to al-Furuj or al-Furuj, so if we divided the estate into 6 shares, there would be people entitled to 10 shares. So we will have to do proportionate reduction. And instead of the denominator being 6, we will have to make the denominator 10. If the people that deserving of designated shares consume the entire estate or more, then residuary heirs have no place here in this mas'ala, in this distribution. Residuary heirs will have no place. فإن استغرقت الفروض المال سقط العصبة. If the designated shares exhaust the entire estate, then the residuary heir is precluded. As in the case where the deceased فإذا كان زوج وأم وإخوة لأم وإخوة لأبوين فللزوج النصف وللأم السدس وللإخوة للأم الثلث وسقط الإخوة للأبوين وتسمى المشركة والحمارية والحجرية والمشتركة والمشركة, and it has so many names. ولو كان مكانهم أخوات كان لهن الثلثان وتعول إلى 10 وتسمى أم الفروخ. If the designated shares exhaust the entire estate, then the residuary heir is precluded, as in the case where the deceased is survived by a husband, okay, and mother, maternal half siblings, and full siblings. Here the husband takes 1/2, the mother 1/6, and the maternal siblings 1/3, and the full siblings are precluded. This is called al-Musharraka, shared, or al-Himariya, in reference to himar or donkey. If they are sisters only, instead they are together entitled to 2/3, and the problem is subject to proportionate reduction of the shares from 6 to 10ths. This case is called al-Furuq. The sisters. If you have sisters. So this will be a different case here. So in this musharraka or al-himariya, what is happening here? You have a husband, you have a mother, you have maternal siblings, and you have full siblings. That is an explanation of how the residuary heirs work, how inheritance by asabat works. They get the remainder. So I have here in this case a husband, mother, maternal siblings, full siblings. What does the husband get? Why is he getting 1/2? Okay. Yeah, I like that. No inheriting offspring. على عدم وجود الفرع الوارث. No inheriting offspring. لعدم وجود الفرع الوارث. So it means no children, but it is more accurate because the great granddaughter, or no, not the granddaughter, I should say, so the children of the daughter, or the children of a daughter, or a son's daughter, the children of the son's daughter, the children of a daughter, the children of a daughter's daughter, etc. They are not inheriting offspring, although they are children. So inheriting offspring. The lack of far'a warith, the lack of inheriting offspring, will make the husband entitled to 1/2. Had there been, and that is the only condition that we look for in terms of the spouse. We're not looking for any other heirs. We're only looking for inheriting offspring. There is, the husband gets 1/4, the wife gets the husband gets 1/4, the wife gets 1/8. There is not inheriting offspring, the husband gets 1/2, the wife gets 1/4. He is getting 1/2 here. What does the mother get? Why is the mother getting 1/6? Exactly. Because you have more than one sibling. Even though, because we did say this before, even though they are connected to the deceased through the mother. They will not only inherit with her, which is unlike all other cases. All other cases, if you are connected to the deceased through someone, and that person, that connection between you and the deceased is alive, you will never inherit, except in which scenarios? One that is agreed upon by the four madhahib. This is it. The maternal siblings in the presence of the mother, they will inherit. Not only that, they will partially block her as well. If there is more than one maternal sibling, it's called jam' min al-ikhwa, it's multiplicity of siblings, they will reduce her share from 1/3 to 1/6. Who else will inherit in the presence of the connection, if you remember? The father's mother. She would inherit as a grandmother in the presence of her son, which is the father, because she's inheriting as a mother. But there has to be no mother in this case to inherit. Okay, but even in the presence of her son, she is inheriting. But this is according to whom? Hanbalis only. Okay, so the maternal half-siblings will inherit in the presence. What do the maternal half-siblings get وإن كان رجل يورث كلالة أو امرأة وله أخ أو أخت فلكل واحد منهما السدس فإن كانوا أكثر من ذلك فهم شركاء في الثلث من بعد وصية يوصى بها أو دين. So if it is when Allah was describing al-kalala, he says if he was sort of survived by Allah did not say maternal, but that's the interpretation of the scholars, by a brother or a sister, each one of them would be entitled to 1/6, and if they are brothers, if there is more than one, then they are co-heirs deserving the 1/3. They are together entitled to the 1/3. So you have more than one here sibling, they get the 1/3. What is 1/2, 1/6, and 1/3? That is one. Estate has been consumed or not consumed. So this case was presented to Umar radiallahu anhu, and he said, well, and there were full siblings. The full siblings came, so they are connected to the deceased through both parents. And the siblings that are connected to the deceased only through the mother, and they are not the children of their father, from a different father, they are inheriting and they are being precluded. So Omar said, well, that's going by the book. You're precluded. These are the designated shares. You get nothing. Now, Zayd came to Omar radiallahu anhu in another incident. Zayd came to Umar radiallahu anhu and told him, هب أن أباهم كان حمارا هب أنه كان حجرا ألقي في اليم. So suppose that their father was a rock that was thrown in the ocean. Suppose that their father was a donkey. He should not hurt them. That the fact that they are the children of the same mother. All of them are the children of the same mother. The only difference between those and those is that they share with the deceased also the same father, whereas these don't share with the deceased the same father. So ignore the father. Consider the father to not be present. Consider the full siblings to be just maternal. So allow them to inherit with the maternal siblings, just like maternal siblings. In this case, it will be 2 to the male, 1 to the female? No. Everybody will be equal because they are inheriting through the mother as maternal siblings, so that we will divide it among the brothers and sisters equally. Now, Umar radiallahu anhu conceded to Zayd in the second time. The Malikis and Shafi'is took Umar's concession to Zayd as the authorized view in their madhab. And the Malikis and Shafi'is will give the full siblings with the maternal half-siblings, and that's the law in Egypt as well. the Hanafis and Hanbalis, they sort of upheld Umar's first fatwa, which they found to be going by the book, and they precluded the full siblings. And these incidents of, sort of, and this would sound awkward because the Hanafis are called the Ahl al-Rai, the rationalists. And that in that particular incident, they seem to be the textualists, not the rationalists. So that's why those categories, those divisions, are not really sort of as stiff as people may think. But also that tension between rationalism and textualism has always existed. It's just a natural phenomenon. It's natural that you are, like look at Umar and Zayd radiallahu anhuma. Did they mean anything? Did they mean anything other than the realization of the intent of the legislator? تحقيق مراد الشارع. No, they did not. It's just that it's hard. I mean, if you look at it, really, going by the book, the full siblings don't get anything. But again, the argument of Zayd is pretty strong, These guys are connected to the deceased through the same mother as well. The only thing that is different is that they're also connected to the deceased through the father. Okay, so that's al-Musharraka or al-Himariya. The Hanafis and the Hanbalis preclude these full siblings. The Shafi'is and Malikis will give them part of the inheritance. And then he said, وَلَوْ كَانَ مَكَانَهُمْ أَخَوَاتٍ كَانَ لَهُنَّ الثُّلُثَانِ وَتَعُولُ إِلَى 10. وَلَوْ كَانَ مَكَانَهُمْ أَخَوَاتٍ. Okay, that tension between designated shares and these full siblings, they could be males and females. If you get the males out of the picture, what happens? And if you have females only, get the males out of the picture. Oh, no, but the point here, you're getting the males out of the picture and you're having females only. So they are full sisters.
Are they all sisters, even though maternal have siblings?
They are the maternal siblings. It doesn't matter whether they are siblings or brothers. The maternal sisters would not actually matter whether they are siblings, whether they are. The gender of the maternal siblings never matters because they're inheriting just like equally. Okay, so here, those full sisters, what do the full sisters get? They get 2/3. Because when do the sisters get when do the sisters get 2/3? Okay, so the last verse of Surah An-Nisa, in the absence of what? Brothers, but yeah, in the absence of, because the sisters will only get in kalala. What is kalala? In the absence of inheriting offspring, that is al-far' al-warith, or al-asl al-warith al-zakar, or the male ancestor, or the male ancestor. And do we have a male ancestor here?
Nope.
Do we have inheriting offspring here? That is why they will squeeze in as heirs of what? Designated shares. When they had boys among them, they did not qualify for the designated share thing. It was ta'asib. The boys made them asaba. So if you're not inheriting as a designated share heir, you wait for the rest. If there is no rest, you don't get anything. The absence of the boys, the absence of the males, moved them from ta'asib to ashab fard and entitled them to inheritance. And if we have crowdedness, then we will have proportionate reduction. And that will be a chapter by itself that we will go over, inshallah, in the future.
So if there is a husband and there is a mother and there are sisters, okay, so the husband will get a half, the mother will get the sixth, and the sisters will get the 2/3. So maternal brothers and sisters at that time are dropped off because the sisters become farad. Part of it. Am I right or am I wrong?
No, repeat that.
Okay. According to your example here, we have a husband, we have a mother, and we have maternal brothers and sisters, and we have sisters, full sisters. So the husband will get a half, the mother will get 1/6, and the sisters will get 2/3 in theory, and the maternal brothers and sisters will be dropped off.
No, the maternal brothers and sisters are never dropped off because of the presence of sisters, because the maternal brothers and sisters are only dropped off
And
in,
those are sisters, I would say the full sisters.
they don't drop off the maternal brothers and sisters. The maternal brothers and sisters get dropped off only in the presence of what?
Male or sister or male offspring, the offspring.
Inheriting offspring or male ancestor. And that is any male ancestor. If you remember, that is not the father only, but that is any male ancestor, no matter how many generations upward.
So how would you distribute that?
You will have proportionate reduction. So they will get 2/3, and if 6 is the denominator, then we will get 3 out of 6, and then 1 out of 6, and then 2 out of 6, and then 4 out of 6. So 4 plus 2 is 6, plus 3 plus 1 is 10. So you will get 10 shares. So what do you do in this case? You will take that 10 and put it as the denominator. So instead of the full sisters getting 4 out of 6, they are getting what? 4 out of 10. And instead of the husband getting 3 out of 6, he will get what? 3 out of 10. Simple. Aula is very simple. So after you have after you have figured out the shares, if the shares are more than the denominator, make the total number of the shares the denominator. And that's it. Pretty simple. Well, we'll come to it inshallah when we... Okay, أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله لي ولكم سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك. We'll take 7 minutes and start our Q&A session inshallah.